guys in Mastic Beach. Obviously, as Pastor Andrew mentioned, this is my first time meeting him. I met his bride, Crystal, at a pizzeria. I don't think there's any better way to meet someone. I believe I met Brittany and Caesar, both of you guys, at the pizzeria as well in Orlando when they were down in Orlando. Yeah, okay. Yeah. I frequent pizzeria, that pizzeria specifically. So if you're ever in Orlando and you want to eat pizza, I've met the majority of the team here that way, so I find it suitable that we continue that trend. But no, thank you guys so much. Your heart for Jesus is overwhelming. Something I recognize in leadership, your life obviously demonstrates a love for Jesus that's overwhelming. However, I believe the true testimony of leadership is when those around you carry the DNA of Jesus as well. And your team and those in your church, I see Jesus in them. And so that means a lot to me, and I hope that's an encouragement to you guys. But keep it up and keep going, and we're with you and for you. So you guys are amazing, Brittany, Caesar. You've made it so easy just to lean into Jesus over the course of today. It's been effortless. There's been a great ease. So thank you, guys. Let's just open in prayer. Jesus, we love you. It's all about you. There's no one like you. Lord, we must have you. We're overwhelmed at the way that you've chosen to encounter us today. Lord, and we pray that we're forever changed, that a city would be forever changed, that a region would be forever changed. Lord, what is it if everything that happens is contained into an 8 to 12 hour window? But King Jesus, we're asking you to have your way in our lives so that many, many, many years beyond this moment, the deposit that you make by the Spirit will linger, and lives will be forever and radically changed, and that your kingdom truly will come, and your will be accomplished in the lives of those in this city, in this region. In Jesus' name, amen. A couple of weeks ago, I really turned my heart towards these couple of days that we were going to be here on Long Island in Mastic Beach. I didn't know it was called Mastic Beach until I Googled it and found out where we were going to be. So, but really turned my heart toward the Lord and just what his heart was for these days. And the word dependent really rose up in my heart. So there's some things that I want to share, maybe a little bit from my testimony and my life that I pray will be an encouragement to those of you who are here laboring in this city. That means a lot to me that we don't necessarily have time to jump all the way into today, but it really means a lot to me that there are those who have a heart to see a city and a region transformed, to see principalities and strongholds torn down. That is the cry of Jesus for the church. Like, he gives the authority and the power to the church to see this happen. And so that means a lot. But I believe there's also something that I'll close with that the Lord shared with me since we've been here that I pray is an encouragement and a charge as well. So a couple of years ago, the Lord really got a hold of my life in a way that was uncomfortable. I had lived a life that from the outside was great. I was raised in church. I was the good kid. I was the kid that was going to church, and my mom wanted me to be like the church kids because she didn't know how the church kids really were, And I was like, Mom, you really don't want that. I promise, I know you think you do, but that's not what you want. But I never really learned to walk with Jesus. So I had this form of religion, and I knew Jesus, and I knew he was real and he existed. But I didn't really, until I turned about 20, start diving in to really try to explore what it would look like to journey with Jesus, to walk with him, to encounter him. to really know him in an intimate way, which I know is the desire of all of us, and even for our time together, is to continue to grow in deep places of intimacy with Jesus. So something happened at the age of 20. I encountered like spirit-filled believers, and all of a sudden, everything that I was skeptical of my entire life, I was confronted by in just a moment. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know how to verbalize what I was walking through or going through. But I found myself with a desire to know this Jesus and this Spirit and the Spirit of God, and to walk with him the way that others were, even though I didn't understand it and I didn't really like it all that much, to be honest with you. My family was extremely uncomfortable with it. They were like, "What? That's really strange. Those people are doing those things and we don't understand them." And I was like, "Neither do I." However, I just am drawn to something, and I don't know exactly what it is. And obviously, it was a life just walking with Jesus, because that's what it looks like when we read through Scripture. And so I began this journey, and I shared today with several that I was a pastor, a youth pastor, and associate pastor for about a decade in the Central Florida area. But about 2015, the Lord began to speak to my heart in ways that I still didn't know were possible. And he called me to uproot my family, to move. I didn't know exactly how it was going to look. I didn't say, "Oh, that's a word from the Lord, so we have to do this right this second." I have 5 kids, so it's not necessarily just me by myself. I have a beautiful wife and 5 children. And so I'm like, "All right, Lord, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't make sense. I don't really understand this." And so I began to try to wrap my mind around what it would look like to actually walk with Jesus and obey what he was saying, which is just, should be normal. However, it wasn't at that point in life. And so the Lord began to really challenge my heart and to provoke me to walk with him this way. And what that I knew it ultimately looked like was my family uprooting from the place that we knew. Pastor Andrew shared with me that he is homegrown from Mastic. I lived in a town called Lakeland, Florida, which is right in between Orlando and Tampa. I lived there for 35 years. I lived in the home that I grew up in when the Lord spoke this to me. My mother and father lived catty corner to us, so they were really fond of the grandchildren being right there and being able to walk to each other's homes. So all of a sudden, I'm confronted with what this is actually going to look like to walk with Jesus this way, because he just said something that throws a wrench in my entire life plan. It's a promise, but it's a promise that I'm trying to figure out how are we actually going to process this, because it doesn't make sense. And so needless to say, we gave ourselves to this journey, my wife, my children. It's a family thing. I believe that for those of us who have families, the Lord isn't just asking us individually to walk with him this way, but our family together began posturing our hearts with a yes to Jesus to walk this life out. And we were amening it all along. However, we didn't know anything about what it was going to actually look like. So we jump into this journey because we have a word from the Lord and we have his promises. 2015 in September, the Lord speaks to our heart. In July of 2017, yes, almost 2 years later, we're actually moving our family, not even that far, but for my mom and dad, it was really far, but about 75 miles, 60 miles into the Orlando area. When we get to Orlando, everything's great. We're living in Orlando. We're fulfilling the word of the Lord. I'm working in Tampa, so I'm commuting an hour and a half each way. So it's 3 hours a day in the car, and everything's good and everything's going amazing. And then the Lord interrupts everything we have going on and tells me to keep moving this process forward, that I have to quit my job. I have a wife. I have 5 children. I just relocated to Orlando. It's not necessarily the cheapest place to live. It's not New York, so I'm not trying to compare it there, but here we are. So we're trying to wrap our minds around what this looks like, right? The first day that I no longer am employed, I'm doing the math. I'm kind of like it's pretty quick. You run out of a little bit of money really fast, you know what I mean? It's not that difficult to figure out. So I'm sitting there doing the math, and I'm like, we have like 15 to 20 days, and this isn't going to work anymore. My wife has a dream, needless to say, long story short, that we're not supposed to work. And I'm like, babe, that sounds really great right now, but in 20 days, we won't have any money. It's the promise of the Lord, right? So it's the promise from the Lord, and we can rally behind that, and we can get excited about it because we have a word from God. Yet I'm doing the math, and in a very logistical way, recognizing, yes, I have a word from the Lord, but the electric company doesn't really care about that word from the Lord, right? The Publix, which is the grocery store where we live, you can't go get groceries with a word from the Lord. So I'm just processing this and figuring out, because as a man, if a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat, and I have 5 children, and I'm the provider for my home, and I'm really confronted at this point. September 20th actually was the day. I'm really confronted at this point that I don't know how to trust Jesus the way I thought I did. I have to look myself in the mirror and say, I'm out of resources. I no longer can make this promise from God happen by myself. And so now I'm really confronted by the fact that, yes, I know we heard from God. There's this side of it where I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we've heard from the Lord. There's no questioning it. There's no mistaking it. There's a promise from God that we're standing on. But on this side, I don't know how I'm going to take care of my family. And so I'm conflicted with what I'm actually going to do now. How am I going to steward this word? How am I actually going to carry it out? And I really sense that there's many of you in the midst today who are stewarding in a really critical moment things the Lord has been speaking, and how we choose to do that determines the outcome. I was immediately, after the Lord began to challenge me with the fact that deeper requires dependent, because when he calls Peter to come out deeper, he really does have to completely depend. Like, if it's you, Lord, bid me come. Come. Oh, snap. Now I got to actually get out of the boat. Like, that's how I felt. I was like, yeah, if it's you, Lord, we're going to go to Orlando. And he was like, all right, cool, come. And I got there, and I was like, oh, snap. Now you want me to quit my job. Like, this is not exactly how I anticipated looking, right? So I immediately am thinking about Abraham. I'm thinking about the journey where he's called to get up out of his father's house and to go somewhere, right? And so he's in Genesis 12, obviously, it's a very popular scripture. He's asked by the Lord, he's invited by the Lord to start a journey. And I believe, like I said, there's many of you who are in critical moments and you're standing and clinging to a word from God, yet it doesn't look like what you thought it was going to look like. And so it's really confusing and hard to process. And I just want to encourage you with what I've walked through personally and what I see in Scripture and the way that the Lord instructs us to walk through these things, okay? So he's obviously invited by the Lord. Get up, leave. Don't go. Don't bring anything with you. Just time to go. And I'm going to show you where to go. Just start this journey. And when we're on the way, then I'll kind of give you direction. Then, which I don't know if I would have been down with. But he's like, let's go. So Abraham actually says in Genesis 12:4, or excuse me, it says of Abraham. So Abram went forth as the Lord had spoken to him. Abram went forth as the Lord had spoken to him. So there's this faith journey that begins that we know the Lord spoke to him, yet we don't understand, or he doesn't know what it's actually going to look like, how it's going to process, what it's actually going to feel like. And then all of a sudden, over the next couple of chapters, you find that he walks through some things that weren't a part of the initial conversation. Like, the Lord didn't come to him and say, Abram, I want you to get up and I want you to go to a land that I'll show you, and there's going to be a famine, and you're going to have to try and run to find a way to take care of your family. That wasn't a part of the initial conversation. And Abram doesn't even really know how to process it, obviously, because he doesn't do that great. We know the story. He's like, yeah, this is my sister, because he doesn't want to lose his head, because if it's his wife, I mean, it's his half-sister, so he just even kind of like, well, this is halfway true. But anyway, that's a whole another part of walking out the promises of the Lord. He's like, this is my sister. It's not my wife, yet it's actually his wife. So Egypt was Sarai. Then all of a sudden you find that he takes Lot with him, and now he's finding a place of strife with Lot. The herdsmen can't get along. This just isn't working out, bro. We can't be together anymore. I mean, it's been great. We've journeyed together this far. I'm sure it was extremely painful. Then the Lord promises him a son. And he's like, okay, how is this possible? This isn't going to work. Obviously, we know he doesn't steward this moment well either. So he's on a journey which probably could have looked a lot different had he been completely dependent. And I'm not knocking him, trust me, because I'm going to get back to my story in just a second. He's on a journey with Jesus. He's on a journey with the Lord. He's on a journey with the Father that he's now trying to figure out, yes, this is what God said, but yes, this is what I'm looking at. And these two things don't look like they actually line up. So how do I walk them out well? And my solution, what I've come to believe, is that for us to walk with Jesus in this way, this intimate, deep place of walking with Jesus, it truly requires a dependency and a complete trust of Jesus, the Spirit, and the Father in such a way that we'd be willing to stake everything on it. We'd be willing to stake everything on it. Back to my story real quick. October comes around. I told you it was September 20th. We ran out of money. October 1st comes around. And rent's due. I have a landlord. He lives in China. He writes me a message. Hey, I checked my bank account today, and I didn't see any deposit from you. And I said, yeah, about that. So we begin now a journey where we're in completely uncharted territory. I've been the Christian that knows I've heard something from the Lord, and as long as I can make what he said and my comfort and my plans line up together, I'm willing to walk them out. But now I find myself in a situation where the Lord said something to me that is completely uncomfortable, and I can no longer work it out. And I have to look myself in the face, like I said, and realize I don't trust Jesus the way I thought I trusted Jesus. I don't really walk with Jesus the way I thought I walked with Jesus. And so now I have to figure out, my wife and I and my children and I, we have to figure out what it's going to look like to walk this thing out. And the Lord tells me in prayer, I'm going to teach you and your family what it's like to eat manna. And I was like, no. Manna doesn't taste good. I like ribs, like I like pizza, as mentioned already. Like, I'm not interested in this because I know what it means. I know that it means I'm going to be forced into a dependent place of clinging to Jesus and his face and beholding him day by day to really trust him for everything that I'm going to need. And so we begin a journey that is like nothing we've ever walked through as a family. And I have to have conversations with my children who just want a book from the book club. And I have to look them in the face and say, we have to believe God for it. But Dad, it's like $5. We have to believe God for it. And what happens is the Lord leads us on a journey where not only me, but my wife and I, and my children and I, and as a family, we learn to actually trust Jesus and walk with him and see his promises fulfilled day by day. October 3rd comes. It's my daughter's birthday. I get up every birthday, we take our kids out to a dinner. We've always done this. I get up and I'm in prayer, and the Lord says, ask your daughter where she wants to go for dinner. No. Ask your daughter where she wants to go for dinner. No. I know it's not real spiritual. You guys might have expected or anticipated much more from me. It's true. Ask your daughter where she wants to go for dinner. No, because if she says she wants beanie weenies from Walmart, I can't go get them. So no, I'm not asking. Eventually I submitted to the Lord reluctantly. And I looked at my daughter and I asked her, what do you want for dinner tonight? And she answered me in the most gracious, loving way that made me recognize she's now beholding Jesus as her provider, and that she trusts Jesus to take care of her birthday dinner, and that it's not something that I have to feel a pressure in. And so now there's a freedom where I'm not in the same situation that Abraham found himself in when he's trying to walk out what's going on, but there's a real pressure that he's about to get his head cut off and his wife's going to be stolen from him. Now the Lord's processing me and my family in such a way that we can walk out the thing that he's promised us. We can actually give our lives to it with a complete surrendered yes and be completely dependent and give all of our trust over to him in such a way that he's teaching my children. This is how much he cares about me and us walking this out well, that he's teaching my children what it looks like to walk with him this way. Man, there's nothing else. There's nothing else that really matters. Like if we can get to the place where we're completely dependent on him, and yes, we have his word, but even the word we don't get caught up in as much as beholding his beauty. Even as David prays, there's one thing that I'm looking for. There's one thing that I'm after. It's to behold his beauty and to dwell in that place, because if I can do that, then everything else is actually going to work itself out. I start to recognize that my children are learning to trust Jesus at 7, 8, 9, 5, 10, these ages where I didn't even understand what that could possibly look like. So we're in a place that we're not working. We're not doing ministry. There's no thing to anchor our lives in and boast in. You know, I stopped by a produce stand one day, and I ended up praying for this guy. He's like, so are you a pastor? I was like, no. What do you do? I don't do anything. What do you, I don't know. I got to the place where I didn't even understand like what I was walking through and didn't know how to verbalize it to anyone and didn't know how to communicate it to anyone. And when I tried, people thought I was crazy and it was discouraging at times. I got so frustrated that I just stopped talking to people about it. I was like, I got to figure it out myself, but I'm being processed. And so we gave ourselves to this journey. We started walking it out. You find Abraham sees the Lord, 3 men. He's sitting at the door of the tent. It's hot, sweaty, still believing for the promise. Abram's there. He sees the Lord. He encounters the Lord. And then he's like, belief begins to rise up. He laughs, but belief begins to rise up because now he's again trying to figure out how is this going to happen. Like, I think he'd almost given up on it, which is why he's laughing. But belief begins to rise up in him again. And now he's all of a sudden back in a place where he's like, oh, maybe God is still going to do what he said he was going to do. And I thought he forgot about it, but maybe he didn't really forget about it, you know, and maybe he really is going to make me the father of many nations. And maybe he is going to make me this, and maybe he is going to make me that. And so he begins to put his hands to things that he doesn't need to put his hands to, striving in his own effort to make the promises of God become a reality in his life in a way that makes sense to him and his family. And all of a sudden, he messes it up. But the Lord's patient and faithful to his word because it's his word. And his real desire is just to have a dependent man who's willing to walk with him in such a way that he's like, if I have this, then nothing else matters because all of the promises I've given you are going to come true. I need you to be a man who's willing to, in dependency and complete trust, walk with me in such a way that everything I've said to you isn't your first priority and it's not actually the thing that you're clinging to, but it's me that you're clinging to because I've invited you into a broken, beautiful place of being stripped away of everything that you thought made you the man that you actually were. And now I'm inviting you to see me, to behold me, to walk with me, and to let me make you into this thing. I was a pastor, like I said, for 10 years. The day we walked away, January 29th, 2017, I started counting how long it had been since I preached a message. 12 weeks came. I was like, I remember looking at my wife one day because that's all we really did because we were just at home. What else? I mean, hey, good morning. How are you? Awesome. What are we going to do today? I don't know. We don't really have money to put gas in a car to go anywhere, so I can't even go to a coffee shop to get away from you if I wanted to. So I get to sit here and we get to figure this out together, right? So I remember looking at her one day and said, babe, I haven't preached in 12 weeks. And she said, well, I said, nope. I was like, I recognize that, yes, it was something the Lord invited me into, but a part of my identity got rooted into the fact that I was preaching. Who cares? Who really gives a rip? I was preaching, but I didn't have the ability to really trust Jesus. Who really cares? Woo, whippy. You get to stand on a stage and preach to a bunch of young people and help pastor a church, but you don't really trust Jesus enough to walk with him when he says, come with me, I'm going to take you somewhere. That's where I found myself. I'm telling you, it was a beautiful, broken place of learning to be dependent on Jesus so that I could walk with him into a deeper place of intimacy, and my life and my wife and my family would be radically transformed so that now we could walk out and actually take hold of the promises because we've gotten wrapped up in Jesus, and the promise doesn't really matter that much anymore. Yeah, I mean, it's important to us, right? But it's not the main thing. The Spirit will lovingly lead us into places of being stripped of everything to behold the one thing, so that we are completely dependent on His presence and His voice. He's faithful. He's faithful. So many times we walk through things that hurt, where we're being stripped away, where we're being chiseled away by the Lord and the things that He's leading us into, right? But it's actually turning us into the man, the woman, the family, the church that Jesus needs, so that He can release it into a city, into a region, into this nation, and we can see real transformation. Like, this is what Jesus needs. This is what He's after, a people who are really dependent on Him and willing to walk with Him, whatever it looks like. I'm not saying it's always going to be easy. I'm not saying it was His fault that we had to walk through difficult times. I'm not saying any of those things. What I am saying is, in the process that He invited us to, we got to painfully come to grips with the fact that we weren't who we thought we were in Christ. That's it. That's it. And then we were like, yes, Lord, we want You to make us into everything You want us to be, which is the most beautiful place I've ever walked in my life. Jesus is obviously the role model, right? He walks on earth. The Spirit of God leads Him into the wilderness. He's tested as a man. He's tested. And He literally, obviously, passes the test, but it says He comes out of that test in power. He comes out of that test now walking in power, to the point that He begins ministry, and all of a sudden He's walking and doing things in such a way that He's so submitted and so dependent on the voice of the Father that we hear Him saying things like, I'm not willing to do anything I don't hear or say the Father doing or saying. I'm not interested in it any longer. You find a man who's completely dependent. It's man, God, obviously Jesus, walking on earth as a man, so dependent on the voice and the leading of the Father that He's unwilling to do anything else besides that, even if it is frustrating or confrontational to those who are religious and those who are abiding by the rules and those who seem to have it going on. These people think that this man is now blasphemous because he's comparing himself to be like God, because he's saying, I'm unwilling to do anything that the Father doesn't show me. Like, now there's an indictment against him because his life is a confrontational point in theirs, where they can no longer go about doing things the way they've always been doing them. And so I guess the gist of this portion of where I want to go and what I really want to communicate, well, help me Jesus, is that it's not even about us completely. Like, He needs us so that He can change Mastic Beach. He needs something to happen in our lives over the course of these days as we encounter Him and as we behold His face, that all of a sudden we're transformed in a way that our lives really are confrontational to the broken, desperate, hurting people who we're surrounded by on a regular basis. Because at the end of the day, if all we are is people who are only willing to walk with Jesus and see His promises come to pass in our lives, as long as it's comfortable and aligned with what we think should be happening, then we're never really going to make an impact in the people around us anyway. This is the issue. The man Jesus isn't always excited about the plans of the Father, but He's willing to give His life to them, even in painful, painful places. Obviously, we're given a picture of Him in the garden. He's not thrilled, right? The Garden of Gethsemane, He's there. He's not exactly excited about the plan. He's sitting there contemplating, thinking, and He even prays, like, if there's any other way that we can get this done, I'd rather do it that way. Yo, for 7 months, the Lord walked us into, I say into, not through, because it's not through. I haven't arrived. I don't claim to have arrived. Yet I know that I'm a dependent man when it comes to me and Jesus. Like, I'm completely, not completely, I won't even say that. I strive to be completely dependent and broken before Him in such a way that He can look at me and say, yeah, I want to do this. And I will be willing to say yes to Him. But what I found is it wasn't really even about me. It wasn't even really about me. In the most incredible ways, I've gotten to see my children be a part of the journey. I've got to see my wife be a part of the journey. I've got to see others in our community, in a church together. We've been able to walk through things in this way. And now our lives are set up in such a way that Orlando really can be changed. We're contending for the same thing that you're contending for in Mastic Beach. We're desperately sowing our lives as a yes to Jesus so that he can have his way as dependent individuals that come together in such a way that forever a city can be marked. Forever a city can be changed. This is what we believe Jesus is asking us to give our lives to. So we're with you. And I want to encourage you that it's not always an easy road. 7 months, my family walked this intense process out. No income. 7 months. No income. Lots of bills. These things don't go well together, right? But the Lord was so gracious to begin pulling out of me things that I had become dependent on other than him. Part of the process of seeing the promise fulfilled is allowing the Lord to illuminate our hearts, as it was said earlier, and show us and reveal to us things that we've clung to, things that we've maybe even sunk an anchor in that aren't him. I'm sure Abraham didn't think he was doing it wrong when he hooked up with Hagar. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm trying to fulfill the word of the Lord. I'm trying to fulfill the things that God is speaking. I'm giving my life to this right now, right? How many things have we unknowingly placed an anchor in the name of seeing the promises of God established and fulfilled in our lives? Yet they aren't actually Jesus or anything that he's initiated or birthed. And then we find ourselves like, what's happening? You said this, and now I'm walking through this. You said this, and this is my actual experience. You said this, and now I can't even get my daughter a can of Beanie Weenies tonight for dinner. I was mad. I was frustrated. I was hurt. But most of all, I had to recognize that I had sunk my anchor in a lot of things that Jesus never said, trying to see the promise fulfilled. And so we walked through this beautiful process of allowing him to reveal these things so that we could pull up the anchors. Like, no, this actually wasn't Jesus. Pull up the anchor. No, this actually wasn't Jesus. Yeah, we put our hope in it, but it wasn't him. So we have to pull up the anchor. Because if we're really going to see his will accomplished, then we have to be unwilling to be dependent on anything else. Dependent, the definition of dependent is determined or conditioned by another. You don't have a say in it. I don't have a say in it. It's not up to you and it's not up to me. We have to be willing to trust him enough that despite what it looks like, I'm willing to walk with him. For 7 months, my family never missed a meal. For 7 months, the house that we believed that he asked us to move into was paid for. For 7 months, all of our bills were paid. Not all of them were paid on time. That's probably my fault, not his. For 7 months. The crazy part is this. October 13th came. And then an invitation was issued to us. This was a make or break moment. I had pushed rent off to the 16th of the month. Explained that I wasn't working at the time. I was in between jobs. I didn't really tell them that I didn't anticipate getting a job anytime soon. Just told them I'm in between jobs, which was true. Because whether I got a job in 2 weeks or 2 years, I was still in between jobs. So I was like, if you give me till the 16th, we'll be good. My wife asked me, why did you say the 16th? I was like, do you want to pick a day? Is there a day on the calendar that you think would be better? I'm just trying to give Jesus time to do something because I don't know what to do. And October 13th came and we got a phone call from someone who loves us dearly, who said, if you come home, we'll get you out of your contract. We'll get you out of your lease. We'll give you a place to stay absolutely for free until you guys get back up on your feet. My wife so lovingly told this person that we weren't coming home. And I was like, babe, that was it. Like, that was our chance. Like, what do you mean we're not going home? She was like, I was like, we might be going home in 3 days. It's the 13th. We have 3 days. We might be going home. And that was a free place to stay. She was a lot stronger than me. Maybe you guys should have her come speak next time. And she looked at me, and she was like, no, Jesus is going to do it. Jesus is going to do it. And he did. And he did for the next several months after that. But we learned what it was like to trust the Lord. My kids learned what it was like to actually trust God for their meals. Like, thank you, Jesus, for this meal. We love you. It became something, actually, you know? Like when I sat with my children and cried because God provided for us and I got to know him in a different way. Something shifted in my heart. The way that I trusted him shifted in just a moment. I was broken. I was empty. Yet he came rushing in and met me in those moments of brokenness and emptiness. And so I really, really want to encourage those of you who are walking out a promise today. We can cling to a lot of different things. We can cling to a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, we have to become absolutely dependent and completely given over to the things that Jesus is calling us to. That's it. That's the only way that we'll walk them out. And beyond that, again, it's not about that part of it not being about us, right? On the way in, we were coming into land at JFK, which was obviously not the wisdom of the Lord. But nonetheless, it happened. But we were landing, and I just heard the Lord whisper, John 4. And I was like, John 4, Samaritan woman, what's your point? Like, I didn't know what he was talking about. I didn't know why he was saying it to me. I didn't understand it. But as you go read through John 4, there's a woman who has an encounter with Jesus, the Samaritan at the well. And she gets to the place where the scriptures say that she leaves everything. She leaves everything, her life source, the thing that she's known for, her supply. She leaves it and goes back into the city. She goes back into the city and starts saying, all of the knowledge we have in the expectation of the Messiah coming, there's a man who's in town who's told me everything about myself. Could this actually be him? And obviously one of the great revivals of that day break out in that city. And people begin to come around and they begin to experience Jesus, and they actually invite him to stay for a couple of days. And later, the Samaritan men come back to the woman and they say to her, we no longer believe because of what you've said, but we have encountered this Jesus in such a way that we've heard him teach and we've experienced with him as we've lived with him for the last couple of days. And something has changed. So my encouragement is you walking in dependency with Jesus has a lot to do with you, but I would like us to take just a few steps back and look at what he's really after. He's really after having a people in a city, having a people in a region who now are testifying of this Jesus, who they have given their lives over to completely. You don't understand, I've walked with him. You don't understand, he's fed my family. You don't understand, he's kept a roof over my head. You don't understand, he set me free. You don't understand, he's the lover of my soul. You don't understand, when I'm absolutely empty, he fills me up. You don't understand, there's a Jesus that I'm walking with, and you have to meet him. When we come to the place of walking with him in a dependent way and our lives are given over to him with a yes, that we can actually trust him, and then we do it together, cities will be changed. Cities will be changed. Our nation will be changed. New York City will be changed. Mastic Beach will be changed. Long Island will look radically different. Your neighborhood all of a sudden won't look the same. It won't smell the same. You won't look at it the same way, and others will wonder what's happening. And then the testimony will begin to rise in the city that, no, Pastor Andrew, it's not what you said anymore. Like, yeah, I know you've been out here telling us about this Jesus, but you don't get it. Now I've encountered him for myself, and something's radically different. And I can no longer continue on living my life the way that I've always lived it. Because, yeah, you told me about him, but now I've met him. And now I'm walking dependently with him into a deep, intimate place. Last night, I'll share this, and then we'll see what closing looks like. Last night, I had a dream that I really feel to share. Doesn't really necessarily fit into a message that great, so I don't really care. I'm just going to share it. I'm really more concerned with what Jesus has to say than like a great presentation. I had a dream last night that my son Zachary, I've told some of you about this wonderful child of mine. He's the wild one in the group, and so but I had a dream. We have a retention pond in our backyard. It's not a lake, it's a retention pond. It's like 12 by 12. No, I'm just joking, a little bit bigger than that. But we fish together. We practice fishing in the backyard. And nonetheless, I had a dream about him last night, and we were together, and I felt like we were here in Mastic Beach. Yesterday on the way in, we had to take a little bit of a detour. So we ended up down Jones Beach, I think it was called. And the water was right up close. Like our beaches, you have to park. In Florida, you have to park, and then you have to like walk across beautiful white sand. Like we were driving down the road, and I was like, oh man, the waves are crashing right there on the other side of the curb. In this dream, I was with my son Zachary, and there were several others, but I don't know who they were or recognize them. But we're standing at the edge of a garage, but there's water very close. And there's people who are chumming this water. They're throwing in, for those of you who don't know, I think may or may not know the term. They're throwing in different types of bait, different type of food. And we're watching, and all of a sudden, fish begin to come to the top of the water to eat the food that's being thrown into the water. So the water is now chummed. This is what fishermen do if they're trying to obviously attract fish to the area so they can catch them. This is what my son and I do in the retention pond. So I'm very familiar with the process. Anyway, nonetheless, we can't catch the fish. The fish are eating all of the other food that's there, but we can't catch the fish. But we were fishing with artificial bait. So we were fishing with an artificial bait. And my son, whose name is Zachary, which is derived from Zechariah, which means Yahweh is faithful, comes over and he puts a piece of like live bait onto the hook with the artificial bait. And we're still not catching anything. And I'm like, man, what in the world? Like, these fish I can see them. They're right there coming up to the top water eating, and I'm so frustrated. I'm so frustrated because it seems like it shouldn't be this difficult. They're right there. They're eating. We should be able to catch them. And then what I see come to my left-hand side is just a set of hands that come into the dream. And they have a hand line, which is an ancient, form of fishing. They're not using a fishing pole. They're not using a reel. They have a line with a hand line, and they have only live bait. And the hand drops into the water and immediately starts catching fish. And I look and I know, oh man, that's the hand of the Lord. Like the hand of the Lord is ready to, in an ancient, what seems to be ancient way, start catching these fish. And just as I woke up and prayerfully considered what the Lord had already put on my heart to share, I really feel to share with you that there's a lot of ways that we can go about doing this. We were fishing initially with just an artificial bait. It was just something that looked like what they actually like to eat. And so we tried that, and it didn't work. And then we tried to cover that up with something that was real, and that still didn't work. But Yahweh, who is faithful, was with me. So like he was there with me. And then the hand of the Lord came and just began to bring in the harvest of fish. They were catfish, which most of you may know or may not know. It's not really a great fish. People aren't really after those type of fish. Like if you catch a catfish, you're like, oh man, I caught a catfish, and you throw it back in the water. Hope you don't get stuck by its little fins, like that's about the thrill of it. But I really sense that as we're willing to give ourselves over to the process that the Lord has us in and not just try and produce something that's artificial and maybe even cover it up with something that seems real, that even smells real, that might actually look real, that there's a way that the Lord desires to walk us through this thing, and that when we're willing to give ourselves over to something that might seem like an ancient method or something that's outdated and there's an easier way to go about it, that we'll actually begin to bring in the harvest. We'll actually begin to start reeling in those that the Lord has surrounded us with, who are hungry, who are eating, and it's like they're right there and we don't understand why they're not coming and they're not partaking. And I really sense this is for you guys in this city. I'm not sharing it like as like some generic wide worldwide thing. I'm just telling you guys, Home Church and any other surrounding churches that may be here with you guys and standing with you for your city. Even as you shared, Courtney, it was a great blessing to me because I really feel and sense that the Lord has a desire to walk us through something and that's not artificial, that isn't even covered up like an artificial thing that's covered up, but an ancient way that's authentic and real, and that the harvest will come when we're willing to submit ourselves to His process and His way of walking it out. Like there's a promise that we are clinging to. We believe. We were just talking on the way on the car ride over, like these are the days the Lord is after bringing in the harvest. Like this is the moment that we're in, but He has a way that He desires to do it. And it starts with us being completely given over to Him and dependent to Him, plucking up any anchors that we might have sunk into something that we could say is actually, this is Jesus and this is what He said to me. No, we have to ask Jesus to illuminate our hearts and to reveal to us the things that we have clung to, the things that we've grabbed onto, the things that we've sunk an anchor in, saying, no, this is Jesus and this is His promise. And be willing to take a step back and actually give Him the freedom, because we have to do that. Give Him the freedom to search our hearts and say, no, you don't trust me here. I want this. Like we're confronted with the story of the rich young ruler who wants to walk with Jesus. He wants to. He wouldn't have come to Him. It wasn't like a game. He came to Jesus and He's like, how do I do this? Like, how do I become a disciple? How do I walk with you? And the Lord wasn't being cruel to him. Jesus wasn't being cruel. He just knew there was something that had his heart that wasn't him. There was something that had his heart that wasn't him. And so he failed the test that Abraham passed. I'll close with this thought. Abraham now has Isaac. He's been given the promise. Like this is the pinnacle, right? Great, take that promise and walk it up the mountain and slay it. Do you trust me? Will you walk with me this way for real? Because this is the only way you see me being able to accomplish in your life what I said I would. So I'm going to ask you to go give it up and just trust me and walk with me this way. Yo, that's not easy. But here's a man who grabs his son early the next morning and starts another journey with Jesus that I don't know many of us that would be willing to walk, and says, I don't understand this, but we have to start walking. And they start the journey, and as they walk, he gets to the place where he sees in the distance, that's where I'm headed. This is the place that the Lord's showing me. This is where I have to walk. And he tells everybody else, stay here, because you can't walk with me where I'm going right now. But me and the boy, we're going to worship. Me and the boy, we're going to worship. I'm fully convinced that what the Lord is after is a people who will look at surrendering everything to Him and being completely given over and dependent on Him, and say, this is what worship looks like. That I would behold your face and be willing to go wherever you ask me to go. And then even as David says, when I keep my eyes fixed on you this way, I won't be shaken. I have the ability to walk up that mountain with the promise, not knowing why in the world you would ask me to do it, because it doesn't make sense and it's painful. And I'm left now in a broken moment, but I trust you enough to take the promise and march him up the mountain so that I can worship you, because this is what you've asked for. Jesus, we love you so much. We love you so much. Lord, we are absolutely desperate for you. And we don't say that in some cliche way. Lord, we must have you, but we know you must have us. It's easy for us to stand and say, God, we have to have you. But I believe your cry this afternoon is that you want us. You want us. You want all of our hearts. You want all of our devotion. Not in some manufactured way, but Lord, that we would really be willing to give you our yes. I woke up from the dream at 2:23. Immediately jumped into James chapter 2, verse 23. And lo and behold, it's a reference about Abraham. That he believed God. And it was because of his faith accounted unto him righteousness. There was a man who believed God. And the Lord was able to have his way. Even for him, it was way bigger than just him. So Jesus would give you our hearts. We give you our yeses. As the team just begins to lead us in, I want to take the next couple of moments and just make room for the Lord to examine our hearts. To make room to be absolutely cut open and vulnerable before our King. And say, God, we want this for our own lives, and we want this for our own families, and we want this for our church. But most of all, we want this because we know the outcome actually looks like us walking with you in a deeper, intimate way and bringing real transformation to a city. So have your way in my heart. Have your way in my heart, King Jesus. Have your way in my heart, King Jesus. Whatever it looks like for you to respond to him in this moment, do that. I'm not going to ask you to stand. I'm not going to ask you to get up. But I am going to ask you to have a moment with him and allow him to search your heart for any anchor or anything, whether it be good or bad, that you've been clinging to that wasn't initiated by him, so that we can be set free from the pressure to make it look like something he never intended it to look like, and walk in grace and ease, completely given over to him, absolutely dependent on him.
My life is in the hands of the maker of heaven. give you my soul. all. I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. Yeah, I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. Yeah, I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. Yeah, I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. Yeah, I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means I will give it all. I'll embrace the wilderness. If it means every season you are faithful. On the mountain, in the valley, you are there. Oh Lord, you can have it all, Lord. 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 Come on, just one voice. You and him. You and him. You can have it all, Lord. Oh, you can have it all, Lord. You can have it all, Lord. You can have it all. Come on. Yeah. You can have it all, Lord. Say from your heart. Yeah. You can have it all, Lord. 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 Yeah. Just prophesying this right to him. You can have it all, Lord. Everything. You can have it all, Lord. Oh Jesus, you can have it all, Lord. 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 You can have it all.
for your faithfulness in the process that we can glean from that. Lord, what we just sang, God, I pray it's not just lip service. Father, I pray that it just doesn't remain here. I ask by your grace, Lord, that you would change our hearts, Lord. Father, really, to surrender everything. Lord, help us to really walk with you. Help us to really be a Jesus people. Help us to really present the real you. Lord, I thank you for what you deposited here. I just pray, God, that it's planted deep in every heart. And I just pray for fruit to abound from this, Lord. I pray, God, that we would just be found as laid down lovers for you. We surrender everything to you, Lord. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, well, dinner time. Go get some food. We'll be back here for our last session at 7 o'clock with Michael. It's going to be incredible, so come with great expectation. Bless you guys.